Hey folks, it's Bear Gardner, and this should be a quick one, but we have just had a balance patch, and I know people usually expect to get my thoughts on balance patches, and this is a quick patch that has dropped very rapidly after the release of Blood and Iron. So we'll cover it, and I'll chat a little bit about it at the moment. As ever, I am a Cards Content Creator, member of the Cards Contributor Program, all this stuff down there in the information. You can like, follow, subscribe, support, all that amazing stuff that lets me do what I'm doing. Right, let's dig in, because there are 3 cards being changed, and they all kind of land in the same place. So, for those who might not necessarily have noticed, although I imagine most of you have, when Blood and Iron dropped, we got a massive wave of Britain-Germany commando decks. Britain main, Germany ally, running the new Commando Raid, and then using Reichsbank to give them a huge turn 4 on 9 credits, usually having procced aerial reconnaissance at the beginning, which is what's the first one on the screen, and it got stupid. Now, I am a lover of the Commandos archetype. Those of you who have watched my streams and stuff will know this. I enjoy the idea of it. I think it's a fun mechanic to have. I think little engines like this are cool. This balance patch addresses, one, overpowering commandos, but also a card that just needed addressing. I'm not going to overly preface this, but I will say that I expected a patch to come. I'm glad that it's come quickly, and on the whole, I'm pretty satisfied. But we'll go through it and then talk about the changes. So the first order that's getting changed is aerial reconnaissance. Aerial reconnaissance before Blood and Iron was already used quite effectively if you were trying to pull off push OTK. To be clear, it was not only exploitable in Commandos, it was very strong because allowing your orders to be reduced in cost was huge, but also if you had orders that were able to be hit multiple times by this, or orders that only cost 1, you suddenly arrived at crazy turns. The changes... So I suppose I should say, this is coming out before. This patch is so quick that I did not have a chance to, either later on today or this weekend, record my thoughts on the current state of things and what changes I would like to see. So you're kind of just going to have to take me on the honours system that this is precisely the change that I would have asked for. I think this is absolutely the right change. The only alteration is that it sets it to a minimum of 1. You cannot get 0 cost orders off of aerial reconnaissance. I fully applaud that. I think aerial reconnaissance as you make space in your deck, you have to hold it up and get the trigger, which you're probably going to get. But you also have to have the right order in hand. There's enough hoop jumping with aerial reconnaissance that I think it's okay that it still exists and does the thing that it does. I just think it was doing it too well, and I think this is the easiest fix, and I think the devs are spot on with this. The minimum of 1 thing is huge. It prevents some of the craziness, particularly... Let's address the Commandos thing. The Commandos issue, which lets you get all sorts of cheap 1-cost orders, which are now free, so you can just play an infinite number of them as long as you've got draw, and timely supplies, then reducing the cost of another order, which might be a draw order. And I'm sure the majority of you watching this video have been on the receiving end of that turn, or played the deck. I played it a bit, and just had the incredibly long turn, where really it's just how many orders can I draw and play in a single turn before my opponent's HQ explodes. Which was terrible. Legitimately, it was just too strong. So yeah, I'm happy with this. I think aerial reconnaissance is a smart change. I think it's very balanced. I'm totally okay with this. Right, we'll hop on to the next card that's been changed. Right, the next card to be changed, chopped, nerfed, impacted is, to literally nobody's surprise, the newly buffed Commando Raid, which was silly. 4 cost, add 2 number 10 commandos to your support line and get a damage off it is just incredibly good value, and there are too many ways to get credit acceleration in this game that make that value strong. But, and I will endlessly be the person to say this, I do not actually have a problem with the fact that it deploys 2 number 10 commandos. I know lots of people think it's absolutely ridiculous and silly and too much good value. It requires the commandos deck to actually do something that it's not had to do before, which is think about support line space and management, particularly if it wants to run any of the interesting other stuff or some support in the form of, say, Crusaders or Honeys. We'll get to why they might want to do that in the near future. But this change on its own will not look strong enough. I totally get that. Lots of people will look at this and go, 1 credit change to this is not strong enough. However, in combination with the other changes, and particularly the final change that's being made, I think this will put Commandos in a place where it is a good, solid, playable deck that can work, but is not just mill your hand, win the game on turn 4. This will be a strong enabling card, and Commandos has needed a buff to get it from tier 3 memes to being a kind of tier 2, maybe tier 1 deck. And I'm personally excited that that happened. I think having this at 5 cost is good. I think it's a delicate touch. It might be that in the future, maybe, just maybe, we see this changed to 6 cost. I wouldn't be shocked, depending on how things play out. But as a designer myself of various things, I am always glad when a dev team actually has a light-ish touch when doing multiple nerfs at the same time. As what you don't want to do is end the use of a card, period. Just make it no one bothers playing it because it's just not good enough. I think this is okay. I am curious as to whether it might need a slight adjustment, but I will say to everyone who is saying that the adjustment needs to be that it doesn't add 2 commandos, it's not the right fix, because the Commandos deck needs a way of getting a little bit more pop off, and being able to get multiple Commandos is the right way to do that. It just needs to be costed right. And the curve was being skewed, and I will emphasise that. The curve was being completely skewed. We were not seeing this card being played in a stable cost curve. And we can't judge it without seeing it in a stable cost curve. There would have been an argument, I would be astounded if there wasn't an argument in the background for 1939 about whether you even nerf this with the other changes that you're making, but I actually think it was the right choice, because 4 is just too cheap. Anywho, that's my opinion. I'm pretty happy with this. I look forward to trying some Commandos in a more sane way now. But we are going to then move on to the third card, and probably the longest part of this video, and a certain degree of game design rant from a bear. So, join me as we discuss the card. Okay, here we go. This is Reichsbank. I have so many issues with this card that it hurts. I always have. This card is really stupid design, in my opinion, or rather was. And I don't say that very often. I have direct contact with some great people from 1939. I chat to people on the team fairly regularly. I love them very dearly. They are good humans. They work very hard. This card was nothing for ages, because it just couldn't do anything good, because there wasn't anything that really benefited from it. And then suddenly this card was the card, the only card that you just looked at and went, why would I not run a full set of these? Because it's so strong. Why is it so strong? It's just a bit of extra credit. Because of where it landed. Because this was able to take a turn 3, which is not always the most heavily used turn. It's often a relatively awkward turn for some decks, particularly decks that are leaning towards later or mid-game play. They're often just manoeuvring something, maybe deploying an extra unit, dropping an order, maybe even holding up a countermeasure. This is a much better use of that turn, because you pay 3 credits. Okay, Bear, but you're paying 3 credits and gaining 5, so you're only gaining 2. No, I love you, I do, but you're wrong. If you approach it that way, you are wrong. But, being me, I shall explain my point. This card is not about the additional credits, this card is about the tempo that it buys. You drop the card, then turn 4 is 9 credits. I'm going to say that again. It turns turn 4 into 9 credits. That is insane. That is a 5-turn jump in both resource curve and therefore the tempo that you get from it. In a game that has things like removal orders, ramp, big things that can develop weird stuff and drop it on the board, or commandos that can just benefit from having a big turn, it's insane. It's utterly mad. Now, in theory, what it really should do is be like, okay, so you can accelerate to get a bigger unit on the board a bit early. No one was using it that way. Not on a regular basis. I know some German mid-range decks kind of were, but honestly, the big use for this was to enable some incredibly abusive order plays. Commandos was the latest in a long line of decks that was so strengthened by this card it hurt. This card was pivotal to the rise and continuing rise of Germany mid-range, as being just better than every other mid-range deck in the game. Factual statement. Just insane. Watch how often it gets played, and how much bank you see in it. This game was able to benefit basically any deck. You could benefit any deck with this card, but its primary issue was that it enabled some absolutely silly combo play, and or just put mid-range decks in a position to have turns they shouldn't be able to have. Now, I'm not going to lie, I still haven't settled. One of the reasons I have not already recorded and released my video on card changes was I've not settled on a change to this, because I outright expected this card to be rotated for Blood and Iron. I expected this card to just be removed from the meta. It was that egregious to me. I was very disappointed when it wasn't. I was very unsurprised when we found a subcase that made it truly insane to the point whereby people really were actively complaining. What we have got, though, is we have a change. So Reichsbank has now been changed, and I don't know how I feel about this. Next turn, you gain 5 additional credits and cannot give orders. So, on the one hand, this puts Reichsbank in the place of saying the only thing you can do with this is get a jump on getting some decent-sized units out. So that means that you're running a very particular thing, which is good, because it means you can't do the Commandos thing, or the, even in my opinion, even more egregious Reichsbank into Blitz Doctrine, into Contest Doctrine, into another Blitz Doctrine, into another Contest Doctrine the turn afterwards at which point you've generated a bunch of tanks in your hand, and for the rest of the game all of your tanks are but +2/+2, and yes, that deck was seeing play. If you got one Blitz Doctrine and Contest Doctrine off, it was good enough because you could put something down, but if you managed to actually sequence it so you could get both off, it was just bonkers. So I'm glad to see that the order spam is not possible, but I don't actually know whether I still like it. I don't know whether this is a wait-and-see change for me, because it still does have the potential to drop out some big heavy units in an expansion where we're supposed to be seeing more unit play. However, we don't know at this point, and this is the point I was making earlier. We haven't seen this new expansion in a actually controlled credit pool and curve. So now that Reichsbank is changed, kind of, we sort of will. I say we sort of will because this can still have an impact, and some people are probably still going to cook with it. Other people are just going to put it in the bin. And just going to be like, there isn't enough value in getting out early units in this game to actually do this. I don't know whether they're right or not. Given some of the new units and veteran mechanics and other stuff and deployment mechanics that we've seen, there might be some ways to get some good value out of this. But it does give you a way to muster down the tempo. So, yep, fine, let's make the change and see where it goes. Honestly, I personally would have just rotated it, but I know they're probably not going to do that in a balance patch, so let's see. And I'm glad they haven't done something silly like just fiddle with the cost or something with it and just not actually address the main issue. Anyway, I suppose it's time to just have a proper natter and a summary, so I'll see you in a second. Right, hit me. So where am I on this balance patch? I'm good, on the whole. I think it's a smart balance patch. I think it probably addresses the right issues. As I say, I'm not 100% sure it addresses them fully, and there are still some things that I am really disappointed haven't been, and I know there might well be another balance patch coming, but I honestly, you emergency patch this, and you don't remove the token B24s from Mafia. I do not understand it at all. I don't understand why that isn't just another thing that you throw in here and just move on, just change the pool. But you didn't, and that's okay. We have seen some fixes. There are some bugs that are fixes, some UI stuff, translation change, stuff like that. But they're just bug catching, and I'm not going to go there. You can go and find the article. I'll link it down below and go read the bug changes. It's nice to see them done. It should also fix a lot of the mobile issues that came with this. Things I will say. One, I am very aware, and I am limited in what I can say about it, that there were very good reasons that this expansion was a hard release for 1939. They did very well to get it out on schedule. They have worked incredibly hard. A lot of people are very, very tired. There are good reasons for this, and while you may not like some of the issues that span from it, I will tell you that on the whole, these are decent people who are working hard, at least from that perspective. I'm also aware that this news is coming out coloured by the alterations to Kards esports. I have to say something, because I am a content creator. The announcement that we're not seeing OCCs is very sad. That doesn't, change doesn't always scare me, though. I'm an iterative designer by nature. What does bother me... Actually, that's a lie. What makes me annoyed... And I'm not often annoyed at 1939, I'm really not. What makes me annoyed about that is allowing that announcement to come out through the tournament organiser in a single line which says there are no OCCs, there'll be something but you'll get some information after Worlds. Why? Why do that? Why engage in that utter PR disaster? It's a terrible piece of PR. I know lots of people are rushed, but you don't do that. You don't do that. It's just, all it does is create bad feeling. You would have done better, actually, to say nothing until after Worlds, or to have announced properly what was going on, in my opinion. However, I am an opinionated person, and I'm not always right, so we'll see what comes of it, but I will say I do think it's unfortunate that the OCCs aren't going to continue to happen, but I also do caution people to wait for a minute to find out what actually is going to happen, and I do caution 1939 to pretty please, as quickly as is humanly possible after Worlds, get that information out there, because you are in danger of kind of losing the entire competitive scene here. I talk to a lot of top players and competitive players, and they are extremely unhappy about the way that this has been handled, and I say that with love. You need to fix this. You need to get out ahead of this. And it's open invitation in this video. If you want to get someone from the dev team to do a head-to-head piece and talk about the future of cards and esports and stuff like that, knock on my door. I will make the time. I will set up studio space. We will get the video recorded. We will chat. We'll talk about questions, and we'll get it out there so people can see it. I'll even see if I can get some of the top players to come and have their opinions or drop some questions to me. Ask me if you want me to do this. My door is always open. For the rest of it, I'm not going to keep blithering on about this. The patch is here. Those are my opinions. Let's see where it lands. Please look after yourselves, stay well, enjoy the festive season if it is something that you celebrate, enjoy the holiday that you get for free around the festive season most of the time if it's not something that you celebrate. Always stay well, and be good human beings, and I'll catch you next time.